So, why should you put effort and thought into style and grooming when you meet with or present to your colleagues? The cliche about first impressions, it really holds true. You never get a second chance. Comportment, demeanor, dress, grooming, and overall appearance constitute the first levels of information about ourselves that we present to the observing world. They may not be the most important. I'm never going to tell you that how you look is the most important thing about yourself, but they are the first. There are a million ways to look your personal best, and we'll discuss some parameters a little bit later, but there's no denying that looking your best ties into respect. It broadcasts your self-respect to the observing world. But perhaps more importantly, it shows others that you take yourself seriously and deserve their respect. And of course, looking your best for a date or a party is different than looking your best for a presentation or a meeting. So how do you determine what's going to work? It is essential that you know your audience. Now, if you're overdressed, you may look like you're trying too hard, but at least you'll appear earnest, eager, serious. Whereas, if you're woefully underdressed, then you'll appear inexperienced, sloppy, and potentially lazy. I sincerely doubt that any of you are going to wear a tuxedo or a velour jumpsuit to possibly anything ever, but I wanted to illustrate some extremes for you anyway. So, when you're considering your audience, ask yourself these 3 questions. With whom will you be speaking? Are you talking to a board or a committee? Are you going to be meeting with colleagues or peers? Is it a potential sponsor or buyer for your art? Or decision makers for grants or funding? And then, what's your role? Are you presenting a proposal to these folks? Are you a guest speaker like I am here tonight? Are you participating in an informational interview? Are you a topical expert? And then finally, what's the environment? Are you going to be meeting in a boardroom, coming to a restaurant like this, going to someone's private office? And then think about also, are you going somewhere corporate, artistic, academic, something else entirely? And don't be afraid to ask your contacts about dress code and environment. Because that third one's kind of a doozy. What may feel stylishly casual at certain locales may feel wildly inappropriate at others. So when you're setting up your meeting, just ask. Ask about the dress code or the general environment. No one is going to judge you or take points off for attempting to be as prepared as possible. And if you're unsure or you're unable to research, my advice is always to err on the conservative side. Because again, if you're overdressed, you may look like you're trying too hard, which a lot of people do try to avoid, but at least you'll appear earnest and eager and serious. Whereas if you're underdressed, you'll appear disrespectful, sloppy, or even lazy to the very people that you're hoping to win over. So once you've got the lay of the land, you can begin planning your look using these simple and fairly self-explanatory guidelines. There's not going to be any big surprises here tonight, just so you know. I'm not going to throw anything weird out at you, swim fins in a tiara style. But I did want to establish a very simple baseline. So, number 1, wear clothes that fit you. I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough. This means that you should avoid overly baggy, long, or oversized clothing. I've got 2 shirts here, but this includes tops, bottoms, dresses, blazers, the whole 9 yards. If clothing sags, bags, bunches, or poofs out, it's too big for you. You also want to avoid anything that's too tight. Again, I know you guys aren't going to wear Helly Hansen to an interview, but still, if your clothing pulls, pinches, or subdivides your body, it's too tight. Also, anything that shows the contours of individual muscles or the outlines of your underwear is too tight. Why is this important? Sorry, we're still working this out here. Self-awareness. Clothing that fits your body is a visual illustration of your self-awareness. When we see people wearing ill-fitting clothing on the street, we often get a little judgy. We may think the person in question has bad fashion sense, or maybe that they're prioritizing adherence to social norms or trends over proper fit. And those things can certainly factor in. But seeing someone who has actively chosen to wear clothing that is too loose or too tight also illustrates that that person isn't aware of their body's shape and size. Even if this decision is intentional, it often reads as, "I don't understand my body, so I wore this." It's subtle, but it's there. And since you want to seem as pulled together, polished, and self-aware as possible, clothing that fits your body is really going to help.